Hello again. In this video I thought I'd talk a little bit about playing live, give you a few things to think about, a few tips and that, about getting the most out of doing a gig, both for yourself, getting the most out of it and making it as enjoyable as possible for the audience. Now, as a guitarist, chances are if you're at the stage where you're ready to go out and play gigs, then you've already in your life been to a number of gigs and so on. So you've got an expectation as to what a concert is going to be like. Now, speaking personally, I know the first few concerts I went to, they were ones that I paid normal ticket prices to go and see bands that I really liked. I went to see bands like AC/DC, Def Leppard, Dio, people like that, really big name bands. Everyone in the audience, by the looks of it, really wanted to be there. They were seeing the heroes and they were out to have a good time. And it's a bit of an eye-opener if that's your idea of what a concert is like, to then go and be on stage in a bar, or pub, or club or whatever, and the audience aren't people who've paid big price tickets to come and see you. The people who just happen to have been in the neighbourhood at the time, walked into a bar, and if you're on stage, they're not necessarily going to give you the same reaction that you would to your favourite band if you went to see them in concert. So I guess the important message here is, don't expect that every concert you play is going to be like every concert that you've ever been to as an enthusiastic audience member, and don't let the experience throw you off your game. Be prepared to accept a few variances in reception, and be prepared to adapt to the situation and be resilient about it. Don't think, oh wow, these people aren't just all like screaming and thinking I'm wonderful, the way it was when I went to see AC/DC or whoever your favourite band is. Yeah, the reaction that you get at a little pub gig is going to be different to the sort of reaction you get in big stadium gigs when you go to see your favourite bands. So be prepared for that different sort of reaction. Don't let it throw you or unsettle you. Now, something to think about is, in that audience when you're playing a gig, chances are there might be somebody who's there who, to be honest, doesn't really want to be there. They might have been dragged along by their mates and be told, oh, come along and see this gig, and think, well, actually it's not really the sort of music I'm particularly into. Or speaking from experience, I've been along to concerts once or twice where I've agreed to go, but on the night I've had a real stinker of a cold or something, and I've not really wanted to be there, but I've agreed that I'm going to be the designated driver for the night or something. So I've gone along with my friends, but to be honest, I didn't really want to be at a concert. Now, if you're doing a gig, think about that person who doesn't want to be there. What can you do? What can you put into your performance to make them actually feel welcome? Make them, so if you win them over, make them want to be at the gig and have the best time that they possibly can. Also, think about the audience just in general. You need to respect them. They're the most important part of the gig. You're playing on stage, there's no difference between what you're doing there and if you were playing in a rehearsal room in terms of the music. What makes a gig is the fact that it's a two-way process. There's somebody on the other side of the stage who's actually watching you playing. You need to respect them in a whole load of different ways. Remember that they might have either paid money to come and see you, even if they haven't paid money, if they just, it's a gig where it's free to walk into a bar and you happen to be playing, they don't have to be there. They could drink the drinks and then go off somewhere else. So you need to repay sort of their investment in time or money for actually being in the venue and watching you play. Now, as somebody who's been in the audience at a few gigs, I can think of some examples of behaviour that you really don't want to be emulating. I'll give you some examples now. First one was a concert that I went to, and the band played a song, did okay, then at the end of it the audience applauded. Now, any decent band, when they got a reaction from the audience, they would acknowledge it. They'd say thank you very much. Even if it wasn't verbal, they would at least nod to the audience, acknowledge that response in some way. These guys didn't. They just completely blanked the audience and got on and played the next song. And that's just rude. If you're doing a gig, if somebody applauds, cheers, whistles, whatever, acknowledge it. It's a two-way process. you've put something into the concert, somebody's responded, acknowledge the fact that they're responding to what you're doing. Otherwise, at the end of the day, it's just rude, and rude is basically just wrong. So don't do that. If you get a reaction from the audience, it doesn't have to be verbal. You don't have to go up to the microphone and say thank you very much or anything like that. Just nod, a little bow of the head, something like that. Let the audience know that you're acknowledging the reaction that you've got from them. At the end of the day, they've given time or money or whatever to be there, so you need to treat them with a bit of respect. Also, be prepared. If you're going to go out and do a concert, know what songs you're going to play, have a set list, stick to it, and those songs that's on the set list, be ready to play them. Know how to play them, have rehearsed them as a band so you can play them as tight as possible. I've been to a concert, again, from personal experience. I can think of a time when I was watching a group of guys playing on stage. They played one song, then they stopped, turned their backs on the audience, talked amongst themselves, trying to figure out what they were going to play next, then went into the next song. That's just the wrong way to do it. You should be prepared enough. You should have a set list, what you're going to play next. And also, most importantly, you've rehearsed that, so when you come to play it, you're going to play it, and you're going to play it right and cohesively as a band. Now, I know that there are bands who don't go out there with a set list, but these guys are really top-notch musicians. I went to see a gig earlier this year, and I know for a fact, just from anecdotal evidence, the way that these guys work. They go backstage, when they're warming up, they just kind of jam on a few tunes, and then as they go out, they have a huge repertoire and they know what they can play, and then they just kind of judge it on the night from what their audience's reaction is. What's the next song going to be, and they'll play it, and they just ad-lib it. But the important thing is that they've got somebody who's in an authoritative position in the band who will lead them and say, right, next song is going to be X, and they play it. They don't just stop the flow of the gig and have a conversation amongst themselves. Remember, somebody is watching you all the time that you're on the stage, so it should be a good experience for them. You should go from one song to another. And if you're not so professional and so prepared that you can just pull whatever song from your repertoire, then have a set list and stick to it, and be prepared to play the songs that's on that set list and play them right. And think about the structure of that set list. Don't just think, well, what songs do I like? Well, I like this one, this one, this one, and just lay them out and then play them in order. Think about how one song flows to the next one. So you might start the gig off with something a bit more up-tempo, then towards the middle might slow it down a little bit, and then build the pace up towards the end. Have some structure to it. Don't want some sort of ad hoc process with fast song, slow song, fast song, slow song. Have structure, so as a listener, I'm going to enjoy listening to what you're playing, and it doesn't jar that you're having changes of tempo or changes of style during the gig. Also important is being in tune. Now, this sounds really, really obvious, but remember that when you're on stage, you're going to be more likely to be thrashing the instrument a bit harder than you would if you're playing in a nice controlled environment like a studio or a rehearsal room. And you might be under lights which get hot, and the heat is going to affect the way that the guitar's tuned. Now, you can tune to yourself really quickly. At the end of the song, you can just go and convince yourself that you're in tune. But when you do that, you're only ever in tune with yourself. Somebody on the other side of the stage might be tuning to himself, and while you're slightly sharp, he might be slightly flat. And as you tune up and make sure you're in tune with yourself, you're actually out of tune with each other, and it's going to get progressively worse as the night goes on. Have a reference pitch. Tune, whether it's a little tuner that you can plug into or whatever. You need something that you can tune, so you know that when you're tuning your top E string to an E, it's the same as the guitarist over there who's tuning it to an E, so that the band is in tune with itself. Don't interrupt the flow, though. You don't want to stop the gig and then go through some sort of tuning up ritual. Try and make it as seamless as possible. You can get little tuners that clamp onto the headstock of the guitar, so you can tune up really, really quickly. Or even better, something like a foot pedal tuner, a little stomp box tuner. So you can just look down, play a few notes and tune your guitar up. Important from the audience's point of view is though, you don't want to be heard tuning up. If you've got a little headstock tuner that picks up vibrations, turn the volume down on the guitar and just do it off the vibration. If you've got some sort of stomp box tuner, make sure there's so that when you click on it to start the tuner, it cuts the signal to the amp so the audience don't have to listen to you going. Because from an audience's point of view, that's not much fun to listen to, and it just breaks up the flow of the gig. So tuning should be as seamless as possible in a silent process so that the audience don't hear you tuning up. Now in your set list you can have a whole lot of songs that you do from gig to gig, but as time goes on you're going to want to introduce new songs, new material, possibly even little changes in style. Remember that people who are watching you at a gig might have seen you before. People like familiarity. They don't like to be surprised by unusual stuff. So if you're going to do a new song, or particularly if you're going to do something that's a slightly different style, warn the audience. Just say, what we're going to do now, it's a new song, hope you like it. That warns somebody in the audience that they're going to hear something that they've not heard before. Hopefully it'll keep them receptive. But anything that you do that's new, as with your existing material, be prepared, be rehearsed. If it's something that's new, you should still be familiar with it as a band and be able to play it right the way through correctly as a band without any mistakes. If it's new, that's no excuse for saying, oh well, we've got it wrong a couple of times, we'll have to stop and then go back and restart it. Well, it's new material. From an audience's point of view, that's not acceptable. They're giving money or they're giving time to listen to you, so you should be prepared whether it's new material or whether it's old material. And if it's new material, tell people that it's new so that they're ready for something that might be a little bit different to what they've heard before. Now when you're starting out and you're playing gigs, the venues aren't going to be fantastic. The first concert I went to was held several thousand people. It was a purpose-built arena. First gig that I played was a dingy little downstairs bar. The stage was about 6 inches off the ground. The acoustics were dreadful. There was a pillar in the middle of the room got in the way. Be prepared for what your concert venue is going to be like and work to it. And if there's certain limitations, like the stage is quite small, don't go and jump around because you can end up bumping into somebody else on stage and it'll all go horribly wrong. Make the most of the space available. And think about what the acoustics of the venue are like. If you're a rock band, yeah, chances are you want to play loud, but if you go to somewhere with a really low ceiling, really small venue and you just turn it up loud, it's going to be painful for people involved. So be respectful, just play it at the volume that's appropriate for the venue and appropriate for the music. You want to be heard, but you don't want to be overpowering. And some venues, they are quite small, quite low ceilings or whatever, and that can have a dramatic effect on the way that you sound. So look at the venue, listen to the venue and set your amps and your PA accordingly. Don't just go with the default settings of everything turned up to 10, because at the end of the day that's not going to give you the best sound and it's not going to be the best experience for the person listening to you, sitting in the audience and it's like as a recipient of your gig. Most importantly though, enjoy yourself, because if you enjoy yourself, that will reflect in your performance and the audience will kind of pick that up and they'll enjoy themselves too. Remember that the most important person in a venue isn't you, it's not one of your band members, it's somebody who's sitting in the audience watching you. And as I was saying at the start of the video, chances are there's going to be somebody there who doesn't really want to be there. They might just be there because they're making up the numbers with a group of mates and they're the designated driver, or there's somebody who's bought a ticket but they're feeling a bit under the weather and actually they'd rather be at home. Always play to the person who doesn't want to be there. Play as if you're trying to win over the difficult member of the crowd, because if you can give the best of your performance and win them over, that's great. And just think about the reaction you're going to be having from the people who do actually want to be there. Playing live is one of the best things you can do. Playing music is great. playing music with other musicians is fantastic, but playing live music with other musicians in front of an audience, I don't think there's very much to compare with that. And you should enjoy it, but again, so should your audience. The gig is for the benefit of them, and if you enjoy it, that's really should just be treated as a bonus. The gig is about the audience experience, and they should enjoy what they're listening to, what they're watching. So be professional in your performance and respect your audience and have fun. Okay? Keep those in mind. Enjoy your gigs, play well, and I'll see you in another video sometime soon. Bye for now.